Hi Sociology students, Tree Hall here with another essay video. The purpose of this video is to help you with the Unit 5 writing project. In this particular project, you're going to be redesigning your hometown, and this goes along with your lessons because in your lessons you learned about city design. And so what I'm going to do, normally when I do these videos I jump right into the essay, but I'm just going to take a moment before I do that to kind of help you out with this. I want to go into the city models. So what I've done in the teacher note that I posted for this assignment, and I pulled this right out of the lessons, is I came up with the description of the city models, and I'm going to go ahead and move here now. Better to look as we talk. I came up with the description of the city models, and I also added pictures to these. So I just want to talk about this for a second before we get into the essay. Now, the thing about cities is lots of people live in them, or even in a town, lots of people live in them. And at some point, somebody has to start thinking about the way that that town is laid out. And city planners, or if you live in a small enough town, it might just be your town council, have to make decisions that will ultimately influence, where businesses go, where you put residential housing, where the streets go, where everything goes. And ultimately, what has happened over time is that has kind of evolved. Generally, there's kind of these set models that most cities seem to fall into, not just in our country, but throughout the world. One is the concentric model, and you can see here you have the core of a town. Then the purple ring is kind of they call it the zone of transition, but it's also kind of, I would call it light industrial. And then, of course, you have the working class neighborhoods around that. That's zone 3. And zone 4 is what we would call in America the suburbs. And then zone 5 is like the really, really rich places where people have lots of land and the houses are bigger. So that's a concentric model. It kind of works in rings. An alternative to this is the sector model. And so in a sector model, what happens, again, you have this central hub. And you can see in this city, you've got the central hub. I guess I should use like a little pen or something to kind of show this. So you have the central hub, but then what has happened is the people who plan these cities actually made a conscious decision to set up sectors. And the best way to think of a sector model is, instead of the concentric circle model where everything worked in circles, think of pieces of the pie. They put wedges in here, and in this particular one, the purple is the industrial sector. That's where things are made. The yellow is the business. That's where the marketplace is. The third sector is this one over here. This is, and it goes up there too. This is the working class residential. And then, of course, you have these several sections that are the middle class residential. Again, what we would consider the burbs. Many American cities actually look like this, as well as the concentric. And then, of course, you have this high class. And there could be advantages, because in the other model, if you lived in an outer ring, you had to drive through the others. Notice in this model that no matter what sector you're part of, all the sectors seem to pretty much intersect with that central core. So it's pretty easy for everybody to get to the center of the city. So that's one particular way to do things. And then another way, let me kill my notes there. Another way would be the multiple nuclei model. And in this, the city does not develop around one central core, but around several centers of activity or nuclei. So you can see that you've got a business district. Let me get my pen again. Here's our business district. Over here is middle class residential. Over here is industrial. What is that? Number 3, low class. Oh no, low class residential. So working class residential. This is the industrial area right here, and you've got the upper class area here. And again, it doesn't have connections. It's also not in rings. So these are the 3 main models that a city can fall into. Maybe your city falls into one of these models, maybe not. And one of the things that you're going to be called to do in this paper is, when you redesign your city, you're going to have to think about these models. Now I'm going to transition back to the slideshow. Oh, or I think I am. And as I go back to the slideshow, here's the important thing to remember about this. The reason that people design cities in particular ways is to benefit the people that live there. And so one of the things that you want to do mentally to prepare yourself for writing this project is, I want you to think about the city you live in or the town you live in and ask yourself, Does it fit one of those patterns? Does it have the rings? Does it have the sectors? I mean, just take a moment, maybe look at a map of your town, Google it, look at a map and say, geez, how is this organized? And then more importantly, ask yourself this. How well does this work? Does does the traffic work well in my town? Does it not? And remember, you're going to be writing about your new hometown. Now, you can use the models or you don't have to use the models, but I wanted to kind of walk through the model thing just to give you kind of something to think about before you jump in and start writing this essay. Basically, you're going to be designing your town to be the better version, the 2.0 version of what it is now. And if you can get that in your head, that's going to really help you write the essay. Okay, let's start with the essay topic. Think about the city or town in which you've lived or lived in the past. How was it designed? Which of these three city structure models listed does your city town resemble, if any, by the way? To get information on the three most common city structures with illustrations, click this link. And again, that's all in my teacher notes. So you can go back and see that note that I put in there. Now, here comes the topic. If you could redesign your city, what would it be like? Would you follow one of the three structure models, combine the best features of each model, or construct a completely different model? Write a 5-paragraph essay. Describe the town in which you live and which model it most closely resembles. You may have to do online research or look at a map to determine this. Then explain the model or combination of models that you would choose to redesign your city and reasons for your choice. What features would you include in your city? Where would you locate the banks, businesses, schools, residential areas, transportation networks, recreational facilities, parks, libraries, governments, etc.? Would you have a central business district? Now, that's a lot of stuff that's in here. And the first step towards writing an essay is to turn your topic into a question with a question mark. Now, if you look at this, there's a lot of question marks here. So in this particular essay topic, what you have to do is you have to just figure out what is the most important question that I should be answering in this essay. I think that the most important question is this. If you could redesign your city, what would it be like? Because all that other stuff really revolves around this. Now, I think it's important here to remember that you don't want to get hung up on this model thing. Yes, your essay has something to do with these structural models, but this is the important thing. If you look at the topic question, which is, let me get my pen out again, is this guy right here. If you look at this, and you had to underline the single most important word in this sentence, likely you would underline city. And this is the important thing. You're writing an essay about a city, not city structure models. Yes, this city structure model stuff might have something to do. Your essay may have something to do with that. But at the end of the day, the single most important thing is you're going to be writing an essay on a redesigned city that you live in. So it's city. This is an essay about city, and it's important to understand that. Now, why is it important to turn the topic into a question with a question mark? Well, one, it clarifies what you're going to be writing about. This lets you know this essay is about this. The other reason this is important is you need to have one sentence at the end of your intro paragraph that very specifically answers this particular question. By the way, how can you tell something answers something? You see words from the question in it. So you need to have a statement at the end of your intro paragraph that says, if I could redesign my city, it would be, and then you need to have some things in there. And so that's important to understand. It's important to remember that this question is important and that you have to have an answer for it. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, once you've turned your topic into a question with a question mark, the next thing that you have to do is you have to organize your essay. Now, normally I jump right in here to what an essay structure is like and how to pick your body paragraphs and all of that. But I want to just throw something out here before I do that. First of all, remember all that stuff about the structure model? It says, think about the city or town in which you lived or have lived in the past. How was it designed? Which of the three city structure models listed does your city or town resemble? So before you go and organize your essay's body paragraphs, you must think about the city models. Which city model does your hometown currently resemble? I'm going to want to see something in your intro paragraph about that. And then also, will your newly designed hometown resemble this model or something else? Like, one way to think about this is, okay, my old hometown was concentric. I want to turn it into wedges because that's going to give everybody more access to downtown. So this is something you just want to think about for a second, because even though your whole essay is not going to revolve around it, because it's part of the topic, you're going to have to at least make a mention of that. And I think more importantly, it will also kind of clue you in as to what some of the problems are in your city. Again, if you had a concentric city, you might say, the way the city's organized right now, everybody has to drive through everybody else's neighborhood to get to the center, and that's not really good. Maybe it's better for us to reorganize into that wedge organization, or whatever. So that's just something that you want to kind of consider before we move to the next step. Now let's talk about essays itself. Now, first of all, it says in here that you have to write a 5-paragraph essay. An essay is a stylized piece of writing. What does that mean? It means you have to follow certain rules when you write an essay. All essays are made of 3 parts: an intro, where you tell the reader what you're going to tell them, a body, where you tell them, and a conclusion, where you tell them what you told them. In a typical essay, whether it's 5 paragraphs or 500 paragraphs, 60 to 75% of the essay is the body. Why is that? Because the body is where you put your information in. The intro is just where you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. The conclusion is just where you remind them what you tell them. But the body is where all the information is. Now, if you're told that you're going to write a 5-paragraph essay, then it makes sense that the body is 3 paragraphs long. If you write a 5-paragraph essay, that's going to be somewhere around 600 words or more. And if 60% of 600 words is at least 360 words, and that is a big chunk of text. You have to split that up into multiple paragraphs. Furthermore, in a 5-paragraph essay, you always know that your intro is going to be 1 paragraph, and because the conclusion is a restatement of the intro, that's going to be another. The conclusion and the intro look very similar, and then you just do some simple math. 5 minus 2 equals 3. I'm not a math teacher, but even I can do that. So you know that you need to have 3 body paragraphs. Now, sometimes you are given the organization of your essay in the topic itself. Sometimes it's very clearly spelled out to you. Other times it's not. On this one, I would say it's medium. Let's take a look at the detail in the essay topic. Write a 5-paragraph essay, describe the town in which you live and which model it closely resembles, then explain the model or combination of models that you would choose to redesign your city and the reasons for your choice. What features would you include in your city? Now here's the stuff I think that's important. Where would you locate banks, businesses, schools, residential areas, transportation networks, recreational facilities, parks, libraries, government buildings, etc.? Would you have a central business district? Now, if we know we have to have 3 body paragraphs, and we better talk about at least some of these things, one thing that we could do is we could just pick 3 items off that list. Another thing we could do is we could kind of pick 3 greater zones that have those things. And I'm going to move on to the next slide to kind of show you what I'm talking about. One of the things that you could do is you could kind of pick zones. And so like in this one, you can see that on this essay map, in my first body paragraph, I pick Central Business District. That would also be known as like the city core. In the second body paragraph, I talk about the industrial zones. That's where things are made. Or if you live in a farming city, that might be where the farms are. Farms actually make things. They make crops and animals and all of that. And then a third body paragraph would be residential zones. Now, why organize your essay this way? Well, one, it's kind of easier to talk about those things, but also I want you to look over here on the left. Facilities, parks, libraries, government buildings, all of these things go into one of these zones. And so, like typically, if you think of like small town and stuff, they also put the government buildings inside the central business district. Typically, in most cities, they put parks and recreational facilities and sometimes even libraries in residential zones. Why? Because that's where the people are. You don't need a park where the businesses are. Have you ever noticed that when you're in a town, there's not a whole lot of parks around in the industrial zones, because people work there. They don't hang out there. You don't want to go to a park until you're off work. So there are certain areas that you put these things in. So that is one way to do this. Or you could even kind of pick, or if you do really want to get heavy on that essay on the city model thing, you could pick 3 sectors and talk about those sectors. But this is one possible way to do it. It's not the only possible way, but I'm going to stick with this for the rest of the essay because I think this is a pretty simple way to do it. This kind of encompasses everything. So moving along, once you've come up with an essay map and you've come up with a way to organize your essay, by the way, if you write an essay map out, you will see that it cuts down on your time 50% on writing the essay. This is very important. So that I know that, I put my intro, and then in my first body paragraph, I'm going to talk about my newly designed central business district. In my second body paragraph, I'm going to talk about the industrial zones. In my third, I'm going to talk about the residential zones. I know that each of these needs to be a paragraph long. I've got to stretch my conversation out one paragraph each. This is not too hard to do, and then I come up with my conclusion, and bam, my essay is done. So once you have an essay map, you're basically ready to go. So now let's talk a little bit about your intro and conclusion. So first of all, your intro has to do two things. It has to, one, introduce your readers to your topic, and it has to, two, present your thesis. I know on this, I really wanted to use the skyline background, so I know some of my stuff is not as readable as it usually is. Please click the link in the teacher note, and that will help you download the actual or view the actual presentation on Google. So anyway, let's talk about your topic. Now remember, this is an essay about a city or a town, but remember, it's an improved city or town. So the important thing to do when you start your essay is start with the existing city or town. You need to introduce readers to your hometown. What model type is it? And then, more importantly, what needs improvement? You can do this. You've got 3 or 4 sentences at least to do this. So it's important to know that a good intro is about 5 or 6 sentences long. And in this particular essay, we know that in the end, we're going to come up with a thesis statement talking about how we're going to improve our hometown. The most logical place to start is start with the existing hometown. And this is very important. Point out the problems in the intro. Since it's also an essay requirement, I want you to at least mention, or at least try to mention, what model type your city is. You don't necessarily have to talk about new model type in the rest of your essay and your body paragraphs in the improved. But it is, they're trying to get you thinking about these model types and how people design cities differently, and they're just trying to get you to think about city design. So please do that. Then next, as you present your thesis, remember, you have to answer the question, if you could redesign your city, what would it be like? So you just spent 3 or 4 sentences talking about your old city and its problems, and then you come up with this statement that says, if I could redesign my city, comma, it would be blank, 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 blank. And basically, you should need to have a thesis statement that shows how you're fixing some of the problems you just mentioned in your intro. Now, if you are going to really talk about the model type, if that's one of the things that you think is one of the problems, you need to mention the model type of your newly designed town in your intro paragraph, either before or inside your thesis. Now, don't forget, when you get to the conclusion of the essay, you go back to that intro. So you write the intro out, then you begin to write your body paragraphs. When you're done with all 3 of your body paragraphs, you go back to the conclusion, and you look at the intro, and you just remember that in the conclusion, you remind the readers about your topic and you restate the thesis statement. Maybe it's a good way to just say, and so, in making my new town this way, we fixed the problems of the old town by, blah, blah, blah. And so you've got that. Now let's move into body paragraph detail. Each body paragraph must answer the question and must be 6 to 8 sentences long. If you could redesign your city, what would it be like? Now, what this means is in each body paragraph, you need to talk about the specific redesign. So if you could redesign your downtown part of the city, what would it be like? That particular body paragraph is a 6 to 8 sentence answer to that question. If I could redesign my downtown, it would be, and I need to stretch that out for 6 or 8 sentences long. If I could redesign the residential areas in my city, they would be, and stretch that out. So I want you to notice that in each body paragraph, you're basically readdressing the topic question, but in that body paragraph specific topic way. The other thing that you need to do, you need to remember that in each body paragraph, you have to do 2 things. One, describe the specific zone of your newly designed town. So like if I'm talking about the industrial area in my town, I need to get specific. Okay, so in my newly designed town, the industrial area is going to move to over here, and it's going to have this and that and the other in it, and these roads that get through it. And then, you're going to spend about 3 or 4 sentences doing that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to transition into explaining how this is an improvement from the old design. So in that, you need to do that in each of your body paragraphs. So you say, this is better than the old system where the old industrial section was over here, because that had a road that was just always clogged with traffic. And by moving the industrial section over here, we've got a much better traffic flow and people are going to have a higher quality of life and blah, blah. It's always important to remember, too, as you write these, the whole purpose of city design is to make people's lives easier. And what I mean by that is it's hard living in a city. There's lots of people around you. And so people have to think and make the best decisions. And when they design the cities, they're trying to mitigate some of those problems. They're trying to make it a little bit easier so it's not all bad. So with that, you now have kind of some detail on your body paragraphs. You have detail on your intro and conclusion. At this point, I think you are ready to go. Now, something that just to kind of remember your entire essay is answering this question. If you could redesign your city, what would it be like? Your essay must A, address the topic question, B, it must be 5 paragraphs long, and C, it must be 600 or more words. Don't forget your essay map. Before you start to write, you want to have this sitting out. If you're writing this on a Word document or something, you can even have this slideshow just sitting out there, and you can leave it on this slide if you want to copy my organization. Or if you want to change that, that's fine too. But be ready for that. And don't forget that in each of these body paragraphs, you're basically going to be answering those things. And so with that, I'm hoping that now that you've watched this video, you're feeling confident, you're ready to go, you're ready to write this essay. If you have any further questions, I am happy to help you. So please feel free to email me, call me, give you some one-on-one support. I'm more than happy to do that. So if not, I hope that my video helped you, and I'm looking forward to reading your awesome essay. Take care.